Well, we've been very lucky with the rain, but our luck had to run out eventually. And as we're getting into Nxai Pans here, it is raining quite significantly. And we're driving through a bit of a river here. So it's pretty, yeah. We are back in the pans in the rainy season.
Better not rain anymore. Seems kind of impossible to get to the toilets.
No, you can get to the toilet.
I don't want to get wet. Okay. The Botswana we know and love.
Packed up and on the road out of the Kumaga area. It's been a nice visit, and now we're heading through to Nxai Pans. That's going to be quite a different set of scenery. It's now much more salt pan type environment or habitat. Don't expect to see as much wildlife over there. It's going to be more about the vistas and just relaxing, chilling, taking it easy for a couple of days, which we have done as well at Kumaga, and it's nice. I think I like this approach to our bigger trips where we spend a few days at a spot and do a lot of relaxing. This drive north from Kumaga has some very deep sandy areas, so sometimes the going is quite slow, and you definitely need four-wheel drive here. We've got the tires down to about 1.3 bars and we've had no issues so far, but it's quite deep and it's quite slow going, and sometimes it gets a bit bumpy as well, like that. So Nxai Pans, here we come. We had a bit of rain last night, in fact late in the afternoon, light rain into the night, light rain as well. There's a big band of purple up ahead where we're going. Don't know if that means lots of rain, but I suppose we'll see a bit later on. It's actually about time, so let's see how it goes. Right, just drove through the gate into the Nxai Pans area, into the national park, and surprisingly, apparently somebody saw a lion last night. That's what they said at the gate. So, perhaps the wildlife is not done yet.
To build up speed. Sorry.
Creating a runway. Okay, let's hold on a second, see how this goes.
I don't think we should go comfortable. This elephant has made a call. I think fasting's already going to be tough.
Hanging out, curling his trunk around his tusks there.
It's very nervous.
Yeah, but then he
lifted. He's showing all the signs of being nervous. Well, he probably doesn't know which way we can go, right? He doesn't understand that we can just drive on the road and all he has to do is go into the bush.
Okay, let's get this guy's coming towards us.
Let's just see. If we reverse now, he's definitely going to chase us, right?
Dude, I don't know what to do here, but this is not a comfortable situation. Pouring the ground. And sand himself.
Yeah, that was a bit
tantrum.
It's not a young male as well, eh?
No,
It's a proper size.
I assume it's a girl. Okay, bro. You're done now. Just you go on your way, you'll go on our way. Oh, this is gonna be mad.
No one's approaching, right?
Not yet.
The Bintuku brothers will soon be approaching.
Keep stepping towards us, right?
I'm sure he's going to finally figure out where this is going.
Let's do it well out of the way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that completely.
This is one very unhappy bull. Let's hope he doesn't turn around. Okay. If he does, we are gapping it. I ain't playing.
As faster we go, it's going extra.
Very unhappy.
Try and find some dry land.
Right or left?
I have to go to the office, so just go that way. I think the turn to the campsites are off. Would be off as well. You can find some dry land for me too.
Yeah, block.
No, do I have to go across the
Top
freaking river?
Which side is it?
In
This side,
200
but I have to
meters,
go there as well.
turn right.
Watch the street.
Well, we've been very lucky with the rain, but our luck had to run out eventually. And as we're getting into Nxai Pans here, it is raining quite significantly. And we're driving through a bit of a river here. So it's pretty, we are back in the Pans in the rainy season. It looks okay, it's just that the road is sometimes a river more than a road. I hope we're going the right way here. It's very difficult to see what's going on because it's just a lot of water. The formula, of course, is to stick to the road, which is what we are doing. Although the road is the deepest place as well, and therefore all the water is collecting in the road. But it's not muddy. It's silty like we've seen everywhere else so far. So we don't expect to get stuck. Obviously, if we go off the road, then we potentially will get into some nice soft bog. The difficult thing here is that you can't always see where the road is because, you know, the water's spread over the sides of the road. And you also don't know how deep it's going to get. But that's why we have a snorkel. So like this section ahead of us now is it's impossible to see exactly where the road is, but we are in the general area of the road. Let's see what our campsite looks like when we get to it.
Oh my god, it's just a river.
Oh, this pretty much just looks like a river that we're driving in now. Okay. I suspect we are going to use the rooftop tent tonight. Thank goodness we have the option of a rooftop tent. Huh. Campsite 8's not too bad in comparison.
Yeah.
Where we're gonna set up.
Let's just park the car for now.
So I think we must park this way so that we've got access to the back of the car.
Okay, alright, good point.
And also we need to be able to have a rooftop tent without trees and stuff like that. Not that difficult, it's difficult to tell.
Okay.
Just kissed it. Woo! Okay.
Campsite is down.
Swamp camping 101. Anyway, no need to worry about where the water is going to drain because we can see that very clearly. We are camping in the rooftop tent, right? That is what we are doing. This is actually not too bad. It could be much, much worse. Might have to scoop some water out of the fire pit. The path to the ablutions is somewhat waterlogged. It's actually not too bad. It's quite silty, so it's not very muddy. And as soon as you've scraped away like about half a centimeter of silt, it's quite solid underneath. So, should be fun. Well, we are lucky to have a campsite that's quite elevated. Most of the campsites around us are completely flooded, completely inundated. I think it's just ourselves and the campsite that's directly adjacent to us where there is some high ground. Our campsite's pretty good. We could in fact put up our ground tent if we wanted to. We did consider it when we got here, but we also felt a little bit unsure about what the situation is going to be through the night and tomorrow, so we did put up the rooftop tent. And for the first time we've set up a little awning which we specifically brought for the purpose of setting up an awning if it rained, and it's working pretty well. Managed to get a fire going as well. Got the braai going shortly, so we should have our food not too long from now. A couple of people have had pretty unfortunate circumstances, so there are people that have had to put up makeshift campsites kind of just around the road and stuff, so I feel a bit sorry for them, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's the rainy season and it is raining, and now the campsites are flooded. The water is quite deep in some of the campsites, and deep in the sense that it's just not practical at all to think about setting up camp there. I must, however, give some credit to my significant other. She did do some research during the planning and booking, and specifically booked the campsite we're in, which is campsite number 8, which is the best campsite under the circumstances. Weirdly for us on this trip, when we started the trip, we didn't quite feel 100% relaxed, and it took a while to get into that full chilled out, we're on a trip sort of mood. And I think when we got to Third Bridge is when we finally, you know, kind of sank into that nice comfort zone where, you know, everything feels okay. And I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a different country, different feeling, different vibe. Certainly our interactions, I think, with authorities have been very different to what we've had in Zimbabwe, for example, in Namibia and South Africa. But it's a it's a different vibe, a different place. So far, Botswana is great. It's absolutely amazing in respect of the wildlife. We've seen so much more than what I expected, if I must be honest. It is expensive though. Botswana is expensive, man. You know, everywhere we've bought wood, for example, we've paid more than, I think, double the price you would pay in South Africa. And for relatively small bundles. So wood's been expensive. Fuel's a little bit cheaper, but things like drinks and food a lot more expensive, especially if you're buying stuff in the national park itself. So in Moremi, for example, we were quite shocked at the prices in the kiosks and so on. So 50 pula for a bag of ice, yeah, which is, I don't know, plus minus 75 rand. So again, you know, more than double the price that you would probably pay for that equivalent in South Africa, and significantly more than what you'd pay for that in Namibia as well. So it is quite expensive from that point of view. The conservation fees and the fees for entering the park and so on are substantially higher than the surrounding countries. However, there are a lot less campsites and it's a lot less crowded. So you're paying more, but you're also getting more in respect of your access to the park and the wildlife, and not having to compete with other tourists, if I can put it that way. So, you know, if I compare these campsites to the ones in the Kruger National Park, for example, this is much smaller. It's a fraction of the number of campsites that you would get in a large camping area in the Kruger National Park. So from that point of view, it really is quite nice. It feels relatively exclusive, and I suppose that's, you know, that comes at a cost. And so there's a balance between the extra fees that you're paying and the greater return that you get on that as well. There are significant restrictions on what you can bring into the country as well when you drive in. So you can't bring fruit and veg and milk, and there's a limitation on drinks. You can't bring in meat because of the foot and mouth restrictions and so on. So that doesn't mean that you're going to buy everything in Botswana. And if you're buying meat, for example, then you've got to be careful about where you buy it because of the vet fences and all that sort of stuff. Or you've got to make sure that it is cooked when you cross from one area to another, which is what we've done quite successfully as well. The other side of it is that being forced to buy stuff in the country also supports the local economy. So, you know, that's another aspect to it. Yeah, I think it's quite easy to come from South Africa, for example, with everything loaded into your car, and basically buy almost nothing at the various sites that you stay at and the various places that you visit, which is good that you're visiting and adding to the fiscus in that area by paying for your camping and your wood and all that sort of stuff. But obviously it's more significant if you're having to pay for the rest of your consumables too. So again, you know, pluses and minuses, positives and negatives. I think overall I'm not negative about it, and I can see the benefit for Botswana. And of course, if there's a benefit for Botswana, then it means more sustainable for things like this to continue and for us to have the pleasure of coming here to experience it. So, time to eat. Had a nice warm shower earlier. Gonna hit the sack after that, and tomorrow we explore Nxai Pans. Was quite decent this morning. Rain had stopped, sun sort of started coming out, and so we took down our rain shelter, headed out into the park. Still quite a bit of water to navigate, although the roads are now dry. And it's actually weird when you look at the roads when they're dry compared to when we drove in, everything was flooded. When you drive in, it looks like a massive river, and then when you drive out this morning, it looks dry, like it almost like it never rained in some areas. So we did quite a bit of exploring around the more commonly navigated areas where you would see wildlife, basically around the pan. But obviously it rained significantly yesterday, so animals are scattered all over the place because there's a lot of water, so they don't come to the central watering holes. While we were out, the rain came in, not too heavy, but enough to be concerning because the roads started getting wet again. And unfortunately, in some cases, you can't see where the actual road is because people have made so many little paths along the side that those start to look like normal roads, and you don't want to follow those people. You want to stay on the proper road, or else you're going to find yourself bogged down. So we tried as far as we could to stick to the actual roads, and it went pretty well. We didn't get bogged down. We had one or two situations where there was a bit of slippage, but nothing major. But it was tiresome. There weren't a lot of animals to see. We saw wildebeest, we saw some springbuck and some impala, a few birds, but once it started raining, everything pretty much disappeared, although there wasn't much to see in the first place. And so we eventually ended up back at camp quite early, which is a good thing because it's given us time to put up the rain awning again and to put up the tent, the rooftop tent. We're staying in the rooftop tent because we want to avoid ground tent issues, and anyway, we're only here for one more night, which is tonight. So the rooftop tent's just a little bit quicker to pack up in the morning. So that was basically our day today. It was relatively chilled, and we did go out, but we didn't see much. Wasn't expecting to see much. We did hear the lions when we were sitting here now in camp. In fact, I think 3 separate occasions, maybe 4. Our neighboring campers went out to look for them. Whether they found them or not, I don't know. We didn't ask, but we could hear them, and they're obviously relatively close by. There was a report that somebody saw a lioness and cubs this morning, not too far away, pretty much along the route that we followed today, but we didn't see anything. We definitely know they're lions here because we can hear them, but we didn't see them. So we set up for a nice relaxing evening, well sheltered from the rain. It's cooler than it has been before, although it's still humid of course because it's raining, but I think we're going to have a nice chilled evening. Probably go to bed a little bit early. Tomorrow we've got to go to Baines Baobabs site, and worried about that because it's likely to be flooded, so we'll know about that tomorrow. Actually, according to the guys at reception, we may not even be able to get there, but they reckon go see, so we'll find out tomorrow. We went through a bit of wooded, sandy road, well, sandy road with woodland on the sides of it. And now the landscape has changed quite dramatically. It's now completely flat, very short grass, so it feels a lot more like we're in the pan now. We can see the first significant salt pan straight ahead, so I hope it's not too wet. We did have a bit of rain, but we'll see what we need to do. The guy that came to clean our campsite did say that we should drive around and not through. So let's see how it goes when we get there. Hopefully it's dry. If it's wet, we may have to make alternative plans and try and drive around them, assuming that there's some kind of route around them, which there must be. Maybe. Baines Baobabs campsite is completely remote. There's absolutely nobody here. It's just ourselves. There's no electricity, no lighting, nothing. There's some very basic ablutions, and this suits us just perfectly. It is secluded and quiet, and it's just the sounds of nature and ourselves in the background. It's a beautiful place. There are 3 sites, but they're spaced hundreds of meters apart, maybe even kilometers apart. So you're completely unaware of the other sites. You can't see them, you can't see them from the track getting here. The track getting here, of course, is interesting. You have to cross the pans. We've gotten here after a few days of rain, so those pans are slushy. So we haven't crossed directly over the pans. We've taken the routes around as far as we can. And in some instances, we've crossed over the pan itself to make the trip a little bit shorter. Got a little bit dicey here and there, but we've got some pan crossing experience now from our last adventure through the Nxai pans. But if you take it slowly and don't do anything rash, then you can get across the pans. Of course, tire pressure's nice and low. 1.2 bars is what we are running at. That helps significantly to be able to float to the extent that this 3.5 ton vehicle can float. So we got you nice and early yesterday, set up, relaxed, watched the sun setting over the pan. It's really nice, man. It's really, you feel like you're completely disconnected with the modern world. It feels, like I say, isolated. It's a very nice place. So after a good night's rest, we're going to be off again today. We probably should have spent 2 nights here. This is a great spot, and we didn't know what to expect. So we planned for 1 night, but we probably should have spent 2. I would advise that you spend 2 days here if you want to get totally relaxed and away from everything. There's nothing here. There's no signal. There's nothing. It's birds, and we've seen 1 gemsbok, and that's about it. No human beings. We haven't heard any human beings. We haven't seen any human beings since we left the actual Baines Baobabs, and it's a great place to come and just be on your own. Our next destination is Eselbe, which is close to Nxai Bird Sanctuary. So it's about 200 kilometers from here, but that 200 kilometers involves getting back over the pans and traveling, I think it's about 40 kilometers or so to the gate over a lot of sand. So that in itself is going to take more than an hour, and then 160 kilometers or so of tarred road. But again, driving tarred road in Botswana is still quite slow because the speed limit's up and down all the time and so on, and there might be a stop of events or something along the way. So it's going to be, I'm estimating 4 hours, hoping it'll be less, hoping it'll be like 3 hours, but I'm estimating 4 hours.